We all got to see what Justin Fields did in his Jets preseason debut. How different will things look this week when the Jets take on the fearsome Giants defensive front? I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Tons of people on there, tons of topics right now because people are excited. Preseason's here. Jets didn't go out and embarrass themselves, and there is a path. There is a reason for a little bit of optimism with this team. I think we all generally, everyone's happy with the way things went last week. But let's be honest with ourselves. Justin Fields performed well in doing what was asked of him and sort of taking what was there in front of him and finding the end zone. But this week could look a little bit different. I'm assuming the Giants are going to have their guys out there for a couple series for a head coach who's, fighting to keep his job really, and Brian Daboll. And if they've said differently, I've not heard, so I apologize, but I've not heard anything about the Giants not playing their guys a little bit. And that's exactly what I would expect. And Justin Fields now, if you're following along, Jets fans, I'm assuming most of you are. If you're following along with these training camp joint practice with the Giants, they were eating the Jets' lunch, that Giants defensive front. And really, it's one of the better units in the NFL. I've heard some say it might be the best unit in the NFL by adding Abdul Carter, who is an absolute monster. He's going to be so good. Kayvon Thibodeau, he's been a bit of a disappointment as a pro, but he's no slouch. He's not terrible. So you've got some guys who will be a factor. There was talk, that Carter was blitzing up the middle and he smoked Joe Tippmann a couple times. He's not going to be an easy guy to block for anyone, let alone, it's not going to matter if the guy blocking him is a rookie, a veteran. There will not be many people who are going to have a lot of success blocking Abdul Carter. So whether he's lining up over Armand Membu or Olu Fashanu, or the Giants move him around and have him stunt and blitz up the middle, he's going against Simpson or AVT. I expect this Giants defensive front to be able to make plays. So this is the challenge for Justin Fields. Even if it's only a couple series, I would imagine Aaron Glenn will do it a little bit old school. Maybe this week we'll see Justin Fields for a full quarter, maybe a quarter plus, and then next week you give him a half and maybe a series after the half. Although, we don't know how Aaron Glenn's going to adjust with the 3 preseason games. It used to be sort of preseason game 4 was when you rested guys to avoid injury before starting the season. But Aaron Glenn, let football players play football, right? That's what he's been doing. It's what he's been preaching, putting his money where his mouth is. So if he does play Fields in game 3, I would imagine then maybe you play him the half and then maybe a series after you come out of the tunnel to get in the rhythm, or, what to expect with adjusting, preparing, coming out, starting again, and then sit him the rest of the way. We'll see though. I'm just guessing. We don't know what they're going to do, and we won't know until they do it. There's some football on right now too, by the way. Titans, Falcons, 6-0 Titans on a pick 6. I didn't see who it was. I just glanced over and saw him crossing the goal line as I was prepping for the show. So again, the Jets receivers will be a big part of this day for Justin Fields. We talked about how Fields took what was given to him last week, and what was given to him was a couple of dump offs over the middle. He threw one sideline route to Garrett Wilson. It was wide and incomplete. Other than that, it was Fields using his legs and short completions. Hit Tyler Johnson, another short completion over the middle. So again, wasn't asked to do much, and I'm not knocking him for it. I'm just saying that you came away from that game feeling good that he made some good decisions, but it's not like you came away saying, man, he was throwing lasers and they couldn't stop him. And I wouldn't expect that to be the case this early on in camp anyway, especially, as we've said many times now, learning a new offense and a new everything. But this is, I think this is just what the Jets need. A preseason game, be it this week or next, where Justin Fields is going to get some reps against a monster front. And yeah, it's preseason, and I get that the outcome, the result doesn't matter, but I really believe that this game, even though it doesn't count in the standings, I think a little more juice than usual because you've got 2 teams that share a city and share a building, and there's going to be some competitiveness there that doesn't exist when you play other teams. And, I'm not saying these guys are going to treat it like the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to treat it like a little more than a preseason game when they're out there, when they're live. Whether these guys get along, it appears they do off the field. There's no reason they shouldn't. But yeah, something about being a co-tenant and sharing a city that you're going to want to come out and get the better of a team. So I expect the Giants to go all out, when the ones are in there. I mean, ones, twos, threes, doesn't matter. But it's those ones that are going to matter most in terms of Justin Fields and seeing how he plays. And look, there was a tweet that went out that showed Justin Fields just wild, erratic, missing throws all over the place during the joint sessions. Of course, that was somebody clipping the bad throws. He did have some good stretches that, what I believe was the second practice, where he reportedly started like 5 for 5 or 6 for 7 or something like that. And then he missed 3 or 4 in a row, and then he went 3 for 3. So he was up and down, but that's been the case a lot this preseason. And against this defense, I think you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of down, not many ups. But again, this is a chance for Justin Fields to show what he can do with his legs. And it's a big one because the knock on Fields, of course, for a while now has been that he's not processing well and he's not reading defenses quickly enough and not making decisions quickly enough and he's hesitating and holding onto the ball. Well, this is a defense where you're going to have to decide quickly because you're not going to have much time. And I think we're going to see Membu get beat, and I think we'll see Olu get beat, and that's not a knock on them. That's just saying this is a damn good front. Olu, I mean, Membu being the rookie, a little bit more raw than Olu. I would expect a better game from Olu. But we'll see what happens there. Those backups, though, the backup tackle situation. Whew, I just tweeted out a little while ago. Why don't the Jets call Jedrick Wills, move him over to right tackle? Now, I knew he was dinged up last year. I didn't know, and this may be a fairly new announcement, but someone on Twitter jumped in and said, hey, Jedrick Wills is hurt. And I didn't realize he was still hurt. And I didn't realize he's talking about possibly missing the whole season. So scratch that off the list. But the Jets do need to they need to shop on the market a little bit for a backup tackle. I didn't honestly look who else was out there. I saw Wills' name a couple hours ago when I was looking through the list of availables and thought, oh, he'd be, just only because if you look at the way these tackles played last week against Green Bay, the backup tackles, it was not pretty. And I mean, you just want to be safe everywhere. We hope that Membu and Olu don't miss a single snap. But if anything were to happen, it's even if somebody just rolls an ankle and misses a week, if it's a big week and a game you got to have, you don't want Max Mitchell or, Carter Warren out there. I think Warren's the better player. I know they've got Mitchell listed above him on the depth chart, and I know Mitchell came into the game before Warren, as sort of a 2. If you go back and watch that game, that Green Bay game, Mitchell was beyond bad. I watched that game and just thought to myself, what kind of grade could he have gotten from PFF? And this is where I like PFF. And it's not just confirmation bias. It's sometimes I'll look and say like, oh, I guess I was wrong, or I'll rewatch a player if I think a guy was great or terrible and PFF has the opposite. I'll be like, well, one of us is wrong. Let me go back and watch again. In the case of Max Mitchell, we agreed. Like I watched that and I thought this is one of the worst performances I've ever seen. And then I went to PFF and his pass block grade, I think, was like 12, something like that. That's out of 100, folks, not out of 15. Out of 100, and it was ugly. Carter Warren was sloppy, wasn't perfect, but he was. I mean, him versus Mitchell, it wasn't close. And again, PFF didn't have an amazing grade for Carter Warren. They were it was like I could be wrong. I think it was like in the mid 60s, which is okay. And that's what Carter Warren had reps where he was out over his feet, a little bit sloppy, but he managed to keep himself between the defender and the quarterback, and that counts for a lot. No matter how it looks, that's your job. Keep the defender off the quarterback. Max Mitchell had very little success doing that, spent a lot of time on the ground, whereas Warren, a little bit sloppy, but upright, and he was an obstacle. He created an obstacle to the quarterback, which Max Mitchell did not at all. Let's see. Lauren, how are we doing, Lauren? Rich is in the chat too. Yep, agree. As I just said, the Jets, they need some depth there. Lauren says, grade him on a curve. But yeah, LOL that, Lauren. I don't know if you meant, I mean, I am looking at the fact that rookie O-line coach, again, same as with Fields. The scheme is new to everybody, so you expect some growing pains and some bumps in the road. But Max Mitchell, he just got himself just beaten one player. He spent a lot of time on the ground. That wasn't all that encouraging in terms of depth at tackle. But speaking of depth and the offensive line, it's really time to stop the Joe Tippmann, Josh Myers competition. It's time. We've seen enough. A lot of people question the legitimacy of this thing when Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn were talking Myers up and saying he was going to compete for the job. Everyone thought, no way, no way, And I kind of said, I actually looked back the other day. I was like, what was my initial reaction? And my initial reaction was something along the lines of, well, it's unlikely, but let's not rule it out, because if they're prioritizing Justin Fields' happiness, giving him his college center might make him happy. So don't laugh about this. Don't be so quick to laugh when you hear that Joe Tippmann is competing for this job with Myers. The other day, now that this gave the Jets an easy out, John Simpson wasn't playing. He's been injured. He's been dinged up. So the Jets, you plug Joe Tippmann in at guard, in Myers' spot, in Simpson's spot, and you start Myers at center, and that's that. There is no who's starting, who's on the field first, Tippmann or Myers. Because they're both on the field together, and Tippmann is probably a better guard too, as well as being a better center. But then the other day at practice, John Simpson comes back, and Myers is still running with the ones. Like, week 1 is approaching now. I can appreciate if you're the New York Jets and you told Josh Myers he was going to be allowed to compete for this job, you've let him compete now. And he's just not in Joe Tippmann's class. And you're now giving him valuable reps. This is the time, like, we've been praising the Jets and Aaron Glenn for, like, letting the offensive line play and giving them live reps together, and we assume they'll get more live reps as the season approaches over the next couple preseason games. All great stuff. But when those reps are going to a clearly inferior player, you start, it's almost like, on the one hand, it's like, great, they're finally getting something right. They're going to work the O-line. But then at the same time, they're working a guy who's the inferior player. I mean, if Myers is starting over Tippmann, that's a huge fail. He's just not as good as Tippmann. Lauren asks in the chat, if Myers is at center, what do you do with Tippmann? Backup center or guard position? Listen, if Myers is the starting center, there's a problem. Because Tippmann's the better player, and you got to play your best guys. And it's not even like, I could kind of get it if Tippmann was at the end of his career and Myers was an up-and-comer, and you're like, well, Tippmann's better now, but Myers is going to pass him by the end of the year, and we want to develop him, and we're not going to win anything. Fine. But these are both young guys. These are both guys who could have 10 years left in their careers. And Tippmann's the better player. Get him on the field. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I didn't understand at the time. But, you kind of give Aaron Glenn the benefit of maybe it is about Fields. Maybe it's about, getting Joe Tippmann motivated. Maybe they feel like the previous regime didn't get enough out of him. And one way to do it is to tell him his job is on the line. And so, fine, you work him and Myers, against each other, through the first couple weeks of camp. I think we've seen it now. I think Myers was just not very good with Green Bay last year. Wasn't very good in the opener this year, or in the preseason opener. What I'm saying is there's no reason to believe Myers will be a better player than Tippmann. He hasn't been. He wasn't drafted as high. He didn't play at as high of a level. He's, through camp, you listen to people who were there. I've not heard a single person say, well, Myers he's really outperforming Tippmann. He's not. And listen, I get, people have said, well, the Jets promised him when he signed that he could compete. Okay, he competed. They're not treating it like he's competing. They're treating it like it's his job to lose. Right now, the New York Jets are treating the Joe Tippmann situation with Josh Myers as if Josh Myers is the incumbent starter and Joe Tippmann has to wrestle the job away from him, despite Tippmann being the clearly better player throughout their careers. Short careers, but Tippmann is still the better player. He was the better player the other day. And why Josh Myers was running with the ones in practice after that game when John Simpson was back makes zero sense to me. It's like let's move on with this little project, this little competition, and put your correct starting center, Joe Tippmann, at center so he can start developing chemistry and an understanding of this offense with the guys he's going to be starting with. It's time for that to happen. And if it doesn't, I don't know what the logic is. I don't know what they're thinking. But it's really up to this point. It's like, okay, I get it. I get that you wanted to have a competition and you wanted to use that competition to lure Myers as a backup. Fine. But they competed. Joe Tippmann's your center. Like, just move forward with that and stop wasting reps on a guy who's not going to be your starter. Behind that, though, after you're settling your starting center position, obviously, one of the, left tackle, everyone talks about it's protecting the quarterback's blind side, most important position on the line. But look, center's making your calls. The center is right up there in terms of your importance on that O-line. But after the O-line, want to go over and talk about some of the guys that played this past week who I'd like to see more of. Guys who maybe played very little, but kind of stood out when they did play. Donovan Edwards, well, just throw his name out there. I didn't even have him written down, but obviously may have been the best player on the field for the Jets. Listen, I went back to see to make sure I wasn't rewriting history. But when the Jets signed him, and I did, here's the guys the Jets signed. I think I did an article saying don't count these guys out. I picked 5-10 guys who are not roster locks, but who I think could make the roster. And, it's for fans who don't pay as much attention to college football and haven't seen these guys play at a high level. And you just say, hey, look, with camp opening, here are some guys you'll want to be aware of who could surprise and make the roster. And Edwards was on there. And I said, look, I know everyone's sort of assuming it's going to be Brees and Davis. And I understand all that. I understand, Allen, of course. I understand that. But I just feel like Edwards is a good enough player. If he has another game this week like he did last week, I just don't think he's a guy who's going to slip through waivers. And what it's going to come down to with him, though, and I had this conversation earlier on Twitter, if you saw it, with our good friend Dom C., with Dom saying he wants Kenny Nwangu to get that spot because he's an awesome kick returner, which I get, but he's also only a kick returner, or has been up to this point in his career, 3, 4, 5 years. He's got 12 carries. Jets may view him differently. I don't know. Somebody commented that he had some carries in practice. I mean, it's training camp practices. Guys who don't normally run the ball will get to run the ball. I just think Edwards is the better all-around player, offers more as a football player. He can run out of the backfield. He's a decent blocker, not great, better than Nwangu. Can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can be a contributor on every down on offense. Whereas Nwangu, exclusively a return man, which the return game has become more important with the changes to the kickoff rule. But if somebody else emerges, that's what needs to happen for Edwards. Whether it's him, we talked about, he didn't do it in college. But if he gets back there and or whoever's back there, if somebody makes some big plays back there, like I look at a guy like Jamal Pritchett, who I thought looked good last week. We talked about him. If you let one of these guys get back there and they break one and they look like they can be a high-level return man, then that opens the door for Edwards. Otherwise, it's going to be tough for him to make the excuse me. Pardon me. It's going to be tough for him to make the roster. Nearly impossible, really. But also equally difficult to sneak him through waivers if he continues playing that way, especially when you have there's a couple teams out there that could really use a running back. And if you have a young, undrafted rookie, You're not going to get a cheaper price tag on a back and a guy you wouldn't have to give up anything for. Just take him off waivers. I would be really surprised if he plays well again and somebody doesn't try to snag him if the Jets try to sneak him through. But some of the other guys that I want you to look out for, folks, Fatorma Mulba, the undrafted DT, who we talked about a fair bit after he was signed. He only played a handful of reps the other day, but I thought he looked solid. Held his own. Now, look, I get it. It was sort of very late in the game. He was probably facing off against other UDFA types. But I'd like to see him get into the game a little bit earlier and maybe get some reps against some veterans. He's not going to run with the ones. I don't expect that, but I'd like to see him a little bit earlier and a little bit more often. Like let's see Fatorma Mulba get 14 reps, 14, 15 reps, somewhere in that neighborhood. Michael Fletcher, another D lineman, the App State undrafted free agent. I liked him on film against the run for App State, and that is what the Jets need. They need to get stronger up front. They need to get bigger and stronger up front. He's a biggish guy, 270, 280, who you can line up at D end. I think he was another one. I think he had less than 10 reps. But I like his size. I like what he showed at App State, and I would hope that he's a guy that gets a longer look because, again, they're going to need some bodies who can get in there and stop the run. And then Aaron Smith, the linebacker. Linebacker's tough because we've said it before, and we know it. Teams don't carry a ton of them. And when you drafted one and you got a couple more on the roster, there's really only a couple spots open. Marcelino McCrary-Ball, for those who have been attending camp, he's been earning rave reviews. I know Rich Cimini had him making the roster in his initial 53, and I believe has stuck with that. And other than that boneheaded penalty the other day, he actually looked really good, McCrary-Ball. So as a special teamer, a converted safety, athletic guy, I could see him being someone who makes it. So Aaron Smith is the guy I was going to mention, who I'd like to see. I think that he's a good cover guy. We talked about this after he was drafted, right? That I hadn't seen him because he went to South Carolina State, really small school. So I read his scouting report, his Emory Hunt's draft guide scouting report, said he was a really good cover backer. Turned on the film and saw that. And he did a good job hanging with tight ends and backs. And you're like, all right, this guy can be an asset on third down, third and short, trying to cover opposing guys out of the backfield or, up the guys tight to the line or lined up at H-back or wherever it may be. And I think he, in the handful of reps he had the other day, he looked solid again. Matthew says in the chat, what's my prediction for Fields against the Giants? I think throwing the football, I think it's going to be ugly. And that's not a knock on Fields. I just think that he hasn't really had another receiver emerge outside of Garrett Wilson. And he's still building chemistry with all these guys. And I think he's going to be under a lot of duress. So I think we'll see a lot of scrambling. I think any completions, I think we'll see some checkdowns. But at the same time, having said that these guys aren't stepping up, Arian Smith has stepped up a little bit, and we've seen some plays from him lately. So if he's on the field opposite Garrett Wilson, that gives you two receivers who are running sub 4.40s. So if you want to take a deep shot to one of those guys, you don't need a ton of time. Let the O-line hold up for a second and a half. And, let Justin Fields roll out with that mobility and toss one up deep and try to make a big play. I don't know if we'll see much of that in the preseason, but my expectation is that he'll struggle. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure early and often. And historically, he's not done well in that type of situation. But, and, again, with it being a preseason game, I have no idea if the Jets are telling him, look, take it easy with the scrambling. If it's wide open in there, go, but otherwise be careful. So I'm going to predict he struggles, but I hope I'm wrong. Let's see. Lauren says, do you mean Zach Kuntz, Lauren? Said Kuntz, the fullback, might be big in the game. He's more of a tight end, and I would, again, I've said it before. Give me a dude who's 6'8" with an insane vertical, and I'm just gonna root like hell that guy finds a way to make it, because that can be. You talk about a guy who can be a weapon. You talk about a guy with a ridiculous catch radius who should be able to get the footballs that nobody else can. By all means, get that guy developed. If you put him on the line or split him out wide with that size, I think he can be a factor. And let's see. Rich in the chat says, how How do you think when Justin throws the football, he's just throwing what the defense is giving him? Yeah, well, I said at the top, Rich, that's what he did last week, and I don't have a problem with it. It's just that, and again, it's one preseason game. We can't sit here and I'm not ripping the guy. I mean, listen, as bad as the Jets have been in recent years, if you can take what the defense is giving you and just work your way downfield and put points on the board, great, do it. But there will be a time we'll want to see we'll want to see some big time throws. Let's see. Tyler says, does it seem reasonable that Brees would be a sneaky wide receiver too? I mean, I don't know if I'd call him a wide receiver too, but he's going to catch a ton of footballs. Bottom line, I think, and most of it is going to be out of the backfield, but they will. He's got the skill set. We talked about this. We talked about this with Aaron Rodgers. And we thought that was going to be a thing. But there were a lot of things that we thought were going to be things with Aaron Rodgers that turned out to not be things. So hopefully under this coaching staff, they stick with it. But that does appear to be the plan. We've seen it. We've heard Aaron Glenn say it. If you watch the Proving Grounds One Jets Drive, what's the word I'm looking for? Not project, not publication. Production. The One Jets Drive production, Proving Grounds on YouTube. I'll tell you what. Quick note on that. It was good, but I hated this. I hated the scripted, having like every player say the same thing. Proving ground, proving ground, proving ground. I don't need that. Like, just let them talk. Have a real conversation and be real. But what I was getting to is you heard Aaron Glenn talking to Brees off to the side, saying like, that's how we're going to use you this year. Like, you're going to get yours. And I really believe that. So I think there's going to be a ton of targets for Brees. Offensive play calling, look, it's impossible to say. It's one game. It's vanilla. Look, I've said all along now, I think that the way this roster is built, I think the Jets are going to run and run and run and run some more, and Justin Fields is going to have 1,000 yards, and I think Brees and Braylon are going to combine for, 1,500-1,600. I think this team will be the top rushing team in the NFL, and I think they're going to use that to draw defenses in and then take shots down the field. So Justin Fields' deep ball accuracy in the past has been inconsistent. Every now and then he'll hit a beauty, but then you'll see him miss a couple times. I looked at, I went back again and looked at every deep ball I threw with Pittsburgh last year. Even the completions, like, pretty off target, where receivers were really, sort of diving, sliding, contorting. Not a lot of in stride, right where you want it, that type of thing. But again, with this offense, I think it's going to be a ton of play action. Run it, run it, run it, run. Kind of think back to the ground and pound Jets when they played the Bengals in the playoffs. It was like 42 rushing attempts and 17 passes. I think we'll see some games like that this year with Justin Fields at quarterback. But look, there's no denying he's an electric guy, and he's got an incredible, his skill level is insane. He got, you look at his resume. You don't go to Ohio State and do what he did if you can't play. You don't get drafted where he did if you can't play. It's just been that he hasn't adjusted brilliantly to the NFL. So hopefully the Jets get him further along in that process. I think the Giants are going to be a good challenge this week. Looking at a few more names that I think we should be focusing on this Saturday against the Giants. It is Saturday, right? Because today's Friday, I think. By the way, in case you're wondering, which you're probably not, still 6-0 in this Falcons-Titans game. Oh, picked off. Atlanta just threw a pick. Another interception for Tennessee. Number 51 for the Titans. I don't know. I'm going to do Titans, Falcons play-by-play. Apologize. I'm taking a lot of sips of this drink. I'm super, super dry throat. Sorry, I should have muted the mic then. All right. Chukwuma Okorafor, the tackle, the former Pittsburgh Steeler. He's the guy that I would love to see step up. Having just discussed how the tackles are a problem behind the starters, the backup tackles, there are questions. I mean, I would probably have, not probably. To me, Carter Warren is much better than Mitchell. But Okorafor is the guy who should be better than both. He didn't play a ton the other day, and when he did play, he didn't look great. But let's get that dude on the field, get him some reps, and get him playing it like a, even if it's a slightly below league average level, that would give you a guy who's a lot better than what you're seeing from Max Mitchell. Couple more names to throw out there. One that you heard me talk about leading up to last week's game, and he had one big play in that game. Quentin Skinner, the big man out of Kansas. Target that dude. Let's get him some targets. Let's give him the opportunity to be the guy who steps up and allows you to trade Allen Lazard for whatever you can get for him. And then you've still got a 6'5" man in the building who can catch the football. And then speaking of guys who can catch the football, a dude who didn't catch the football, I don't think he had any targets last week, and had 10 drops in college last year. We've talked about him a few times, Dymere Miller. Kid can absolutely fly, but he's an Arian Smith clone in that they're both going to run at the 4.3s, and they both dropped 10 footballs last year. Which reminds me, I don't think I mentioned this the other day, but tell me if you think I'm being, I don't think I'm being unfair here. I think the comments from Aaron Glenn to the media about Arian Smith, and I know I talked to somebody about this, so I apologize if I'm an idiot and I'm forgetting that I already mentioned this on the show. But bear with me. Zach Rosenblatt asked a question about Arian Smith playing well, and Aaron Glenn was like, "Oh yeah, the guy you said couldn't catch the ball, the guy that that you guys said couldn't catch." And it was like kind of confrontational and like calling out the media. And again, it's not a big deal, but I'm watching and I'm thinking, he did drop 10 footballs last year, Aaron Glenn. Is the media not supposed to report that? Like, it was almost like he was suggesting they were making something up or like they had something against him. Like, if they drafted a receiver who ran a 5.6 40, they got to report that and be like, well, this is kind of weird, but the Jets just drafted a dude who ran a 5.6 40. And then if that guy shows up to camp and he's a lot faster than that, you can get mad at the media and be like, oh, look how fast he is. You guys said he ran a 5.6. Well, he did. Like, we're here to report what happens. And I know they don't always do that. Different conversation. But I'm just saying, I thought it was really weird. Aaron Glenn was, oh yeah, you mean the guy that you guys that y'all said can't catch? I saw him say that, and I'm like, they just said he had 10 drops, which he did, and the team acknowledged it, and Smith acknowledged it after the pick, and the team is taking special measures to fix it. Very strange. It's like they're just describing reality. Aaron Glenn, who, look, I love everything about Aaron Glenn so far. Just the only thing that stood out to me, there's been a couple of occasions where the way he reacts to the media is just surprising. I think the way I described it, because I talked about the Samini thing, like Aaron Glenn almost responds sometimes the way you expect a guy to respond when his job is on the line. Like his temper's short and he's tired of 3-4 years of losing, and someone's already asked him that question and he's mad now and he snaps. But other than that, and like I said, and I think I did say it at the time last week, this could be Aaron Glenn just using the media to try to motivate his players, which guys do sometimes, and that's fine. But that was it on that. But so Saturday night, we got. See, I get messed up. I think it's 6-7 kickoff, whatever it is. Pretty sure it's midnight here when they kick off, which would be 7. So I think it's a 7 p.m. kickoff tomorrow night at MetLife. Follow jetnation.com. Give us a follow on Twitter. Like and follow us on here too. I never say that. I say it like once or twice a year. I remember that every podcast I listen to, everyone starts off with, give us a like and a follow. Give us a like. And I'm just like, I just forget. So give us a like and a follow. Give us a review. Review us somewhere. Rich says, will the starters play? As far as I know, yeah, I don't see why Aaron Glenn would start them week 1 and then bench him week 2. If anything else, I would expect him to play more if he started in week 1, following the same logic. of letting guys play and get ready for the season. So yeah, I would expect the starters to go. I would expect them to get a full quarter. They only played a drive this week. And the guys like Membu, he'll probably get a little bit more than the rest of the starters, maybe Tippmann as well. But get Tippmann in there and stop with this silliness with Myers. It doesn't make any sense. But that'll wrap this one up. Just a list of a few guys, a handful of guys who we'd like to see make some plays. And, I'm going to throw him on there. I mentioned him last week. He did nothing. But then he had a nice little touchdown the other day against the Giants. Jeremy Ruckert, man. I feel like this is it for him. I feel like if he doesn't do something over the next couple weeks, I don't think he makes the team. And I love the guy. I want to see him. We all want to see him make the roster. Everybody wants him to make the roster. But he hasn't done anything in 3 years and a preseason game. So how about talk to your boy Justin, Jeremy, and be like, hey, just like old times, buddy, how about we get in the red zone tonight? You give me a couple targets. Let me get 6 on the board and get some people off my back and start trending in the right direction. So let's get Jeremy Ruckert involved. Let's get a catch for Jeremy Ruckert. Jojo Townsell says starters need to play as many reps as possible, 100%. That's got to happen. And Rich says we have some good players on the D-line to help Q. We do. I meant to talk about Eric Watts. I thought he looked good. And Beck looked better than Ruckert, says Jojo Townsell. He did. More of a true fullback, but Beck is a guy, and I said it a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, whatever, on Scott Mason, I Play Like a Jet. And I was like, this might be a guy we're not talking enough about. This Beck could be a dude for this offense. The thing is, I think he can play, but I don't know what the offensive plan is. But the fact that they added him was like, if they genuinely want a piece, a versatile piece who can be your tight end, be your fullback, do a few different things, catch the football, like Beck can be that. So until we see the offense, we don't know. But it was like, yeah, there's a path to this guy being a bigger deal than a lot of people expected when he was signed. So we'll see. That'll wrap this one up. We will be back. We'll go live. Might even go live tomorrow before the game, just for the hell of it. Just talk for a little bit. Definitely live after the game. And then we'll probably do, because back in the study, back at home. Listen, vacations are wonderful. I had a great time. Love the family, all that great stuff. But it's nice to get home. And it's nice to be like real internet, like a microphone that works properly. Great to be back home. Great to be doing this. Great that the season is starting, and we are going to be live on a much more regular basis this year, because why the hell not? Tyler, you have a great day too. Harold, absolutely. JETS, Jets. Like I said, follow, share, tell your friends. Go on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen. If you're listening via podcast, and give us some 5-star reviews. I think that's the limit, 5. Yeah, give us some 5-star reviews. Tell people to tune in. More to come in the coming days. Let's go Jets, and have a good one, Jets fans.